Yeah, no, I get you. I just don't see how a fern and a pumpkin are going to be a tier 1 meta archetype. Oh, wait, now I do.
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-minute testing. As I prepare for the YCS, I've started to see Tearlament in my nightmares, Sprite when I shut my eyes, and of course, feel flu in my soul. But as I start focusing on my rogue matchups, let me tell you... God, I hope I do not hit a single rogue player. On that note, here's one of the decks which terrifies me. Naturia.
Nature will rise against you.
So here's the list. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck just got a huge redesign, but it's still the #1 place to go for a pack simulator, a card database, and a wealth of strategy articles. I personally use the site to post every 10-minute testing list and every Chalice Line Monthly Top Cut entry. Give it a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. With that, let's nestle into Naturia. I consider myself to be the Naturia authority, or Athuria, if you will. That's because I've played Naturia to a historic victory in the history of Jank. Yeah! 1 minute 30-second game. And a historic loss in Master Roulette.
Oh my god.
This means that I've played 2 more games of Naturia than any other Yu-Gi-Oh! Player. This series of plants and insects, and beasts, and rocks, and 1 dragon are meant to evoke the rich and diverse life of a sacred enchanted forest. And like most forests, they're really easy for humans to destroy. Look, there was no Junior Journey this week. I have to get my climate anxiety fix somewhere. Anyway, these monsters are most famous because of their boss monsters. 3 synchros that are generic and powerful enough to have seen consistent play throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history, despite their archetype's consistent suckage. Naturia Beast, Naturia Barkion, and Naturia Landois can negate spells, traps, and monster effects respectively, up to infinity times per turn. For a long time, it looked like Naturia was going to have the same historic impact as Ice Barrier, some busted extra deck monsters that were only made in much better decks. Until now, Darkwing Blast featured a whole new wave of Naturia support, for some reason. Naturia Camilla, Naturia Mole Cricket, and Naturia Blessing. These 3 new cards, and Naturia's own Ben 10, Naturia Sacred Tree, form the backbone of an incredibly powerful resource loop that's hard for even modern decks to keep up with. Add to that the ability to play consistency tools like the Vernisylphs, bosses like Vera, and of course, some of the new Ishizu stuff from Magnificent Mavens, and you've got a stew going good enough to go toe-to-toe with the metagame. You even get to sprinkle in some of the old birds and bugs as well, like Bamboo Shoot, Horneedle, Sunflower, and... okay, I know Butterfly is supposed to be Stinkbug, but she is cuter, and you don't really ever want to tribute as many guys as Stinkbug needs. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First, the staples, 2 Fenrir, 3 Pizza Hut, and 1 Druis Worm. After that, the Ishizu cards, 3 Mudora, 2 Keldo, and 1 copy of Kelbeck. Now, we don't actually need to mill a lot of cards off the top of our deck because we have so many targeted mills that want to hit exactly Sacred Tree. More important than that is the ability to put those Sacred Trees back for future turns. That's where Keldo and Mudora come in. We do still want the flexibility of Kelbeck, but we don't want to rely on it. After that, we've got the Vernisylphs, 3 copies of the Flourishing Hills, 3 copies of the Misting Seedlings, 1 copy of the Awakening Forests, and 1 Vera the Vernisylph Goddess. This does absolutely everything for the archetype. It's negation at the point of resolution, and there are so few cards that do that. Next, we've got the actual Naturias, of which we are playing 10. 3 copies of Naturia Camilla. If this card is normally special summoned, you can send a Naturia card from your deck to the graveyard, and if you tribute a monster to activate a Naturia's monster effect, you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard instead. If your opponent normally special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can special a Naturia monster from your graveyard, and you can only use each effect once per turn. After that is Naturia Mole Cricket. During the main phase, as a quick, you contribute this card to special a Naturia monster from your deck, or if your opponent controls a monster with the highest attack on the field, you can summon 2. If your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, or you special summon a Naturia monster while this is in your graveyard, it just comes on back. After that, we've got the fun ofs, 1 copy of Sunflower. When your opponent's monster effect is activated, you contribute a Naturia monster and this card to negate and destroy it. Naturia Bamboo Shoot, which, while you control this face-up monster that was tribute summoned by tributing a Naturia, prevents your opponent from activating spell and trap cards. 1 Horneedle, which, when your opponent special summons a monster, allows you to tribute another face-up Naturia monster you control to destroy it, not a once per turn, by the way. And 1 Naturia Butterfly, which, when your opponent's monster declares an attack, allows you to send the top card of your deck to the graveyard and negate that attack. After that, we've got 3 copies of Prosby, 1 copy of Called By, and 2 2 copies of Naturia Blessing. This card allows you to activate one of 3 effects. You can special summon a Naturia from your graveyard or hand. You can immediately after this effect resolves perform a synchro summon using monsters you control as material, including a Naturia, or you can fusion summon, which you will never be activating. After this, we've got the Sacred Tree. It has a bunch of continuous effects that are interesting, but the important text on this card is the first line. If this card is sent to the graveyard, add a Naturia card from your deck to your hand, except for Naturia Sacred Tree. Finally, we're playing 1 copy of Gravekeeper's Trap. We're just trying to live the dream here, folks. And finally, the extra. We do have access to synchro plays, so we're playing Psychic and Punisher, which many decks don't have an out for. Cheng-Ying and Barone, which this deck can make pretty easily. The Landoys, Barkion, and Beast are, of course, very good in their native archetypes. Zeus is Zeus, and then we've got Baguska for Fluandereeze, Abyss Dweller for exactly Tearlament, and Gagaga Cowboy for Konami's biggest mistake yet. For links, we've got a copy of Unicorn, an Ausa, a Donna, an IP Masquerena, and to break those pesky Eebly locks, a Lingaribo. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Dinosaur, and thank God we have opened Mudora. This allows us to start with Gravekeeper's Trap, which is unbelievably powerful. After that, we're going to go for a Flourishing Hills, bringing back itself, and then the Misty we searched in order to summon back a Mole Cricket. We'll trigger the effect of the Gravekeeper's Trap, pitching the Kelbeck that we searched to hand, and then we'll mill 5, getting just a little bit lost in the sauce before we go for a Mole Cricket for our Camellis. We'll trigger the effect of the Camilla in order to send a copy of Sacred Tree. We'll trigger the effect of the Sacred Tree to grab a Blessing, then we'll fire the Blessing in order to reborn this copy of Mole Cricket and make a Naturia Beast. We'll finally end with the Mole Cricket cycling itself, and the Mudora putting a bunch of really cool cards back into our deck before Tribute summoning a Vera and passing. Our opponent draws for turn. We'll activate Gravekeeper's Trap, calling Miscellaneous Source, and oh god, it's Gamma. That means we can't negate the effects of these spell cards with our Naturia Beast, because otherwise they will be able to destroy it. They're instead going to get to do absolutely everything they want before they go for Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. They're going to go for Rex here. We will chain the effect of Vera. They will chain the effect of Miscellaneous Source. No big deal to me. We'll summon back the Camilla, and then afterwards we'll activate the effect of the Camilla and the effect of the Mudora in order to shuffle back that Miscellaneous Source so they can't further extend. We'll send a Sacred Tree and then trigger the effect of the Sacred Tree for a Blessing. They'll normal summon Scrap Raptor and activate the effect. We will Mole Cricket, and because they have the higher attack monster, we can go for both a Butterfly and a Sunflower. They're going to trigger the effect of the Scrap Raptor and the effect of the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno in sequence, which we will negate at point of resolution with Vera. They're going to go for a Scrap Chimera. This is a perfect way to trigger the effect of the Sunflower, using the onboard effect of Camilla to replace the effect to Tribute. Our opponent's going to concede after they realize they can't break through our board. Our second match is up against Bestial Dragonlink, and this game showcases that even our bad boards are deceptively powerful. We're going to normal summon Horneedle and pass, but I'm still feeling pretty confident. In draw phase, we'll flip this set copy of Sacred Tree to tag into a Camilla, then trigger the effect of the Camilla to send a Mole Cricket. Our opponent's going to go for the Lubellion they drew off the top. That is Prime called by material. They're going to go for Saronir. We're going to chain Trap, pitching Mudora. Then as Chainlink 5, activate Mudora, targeting the Lubellion, among other cards in our graveyard. We're going to add a Kelbeck to hand. At resolution, they aren't able to summon the Saronir, and they're going to have to commit to a Seifert. We'll activate the effect of the Camilla here in order to go into Mole Cricket, then trigger the effect of the Mole Cricket, replacing the Tribute cost by the effect of Camellis in order to make Horneedle and Sunflower. They'll walk over the Camellis, then activate the effect of the Safer, which we will negate with the Sunflower and pass. From here, we should be able to lock it up. We'll draw for turn. That's a great one. We're going to go for Gravekeeper's Trap, milling this Kelbeck, then activating the effect of the Kelbeck, milling 5. Oh, good, we hit a Sacred Tree, which allows us to get a Blessing. We will go for our Vernisylph here to reborn Vera, and then afterwards, we're going to fire off Blessing in order to summon from graveyard this copy of Camilla. Camilla loop online. We'll activate the effect in order to send a copy of Sacred Tree. That's going to get us a Mole Cricket. We will activate the effect of our last Vernisylph to pump this Vera to lethal levels. Proceeding to combat, and our opponent does get into a bit of a scuffle with us because, as you can see, they do have a couple of live Bestials. They're going to go for the first one. We have a Mudora in graveyard to blank that, and then at resolution, they'll go for the second one, the Druis Worm, for which we have a Keldo. We'll shuffle all these cards back into the deck, and our opponent is going to be dealt lethal damage. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing Sprite. In theory, in practice, it looks like they're playing Skullmeister Turbo. We're going to begin with a copy of Fenrir. We'll fire off a Pot of Prosperity, finding off the top. All right, I guess we'll take Blessing. We're going to normal summon this copy of Camellis. We'll send from deck to graveyard. Nothing! Absolutely nothing! Let's set 2 cards and hope for the best. No big deal, this hand is fine, but the third Skullmeister really brings it all together. They're going to normal summon a Skullmeister and walk into our Camellis, and then in main phase 2 we can activate Blessing to bring back the Camellis, activate the Camellis in order to send a copy of Sacred Tree, and walk into the second Skullmeister. Well, no one suspects the third one. At resolution we can activate Fenrir to banish this one on field face down, at which point our opponent can go for Pizza Hut to summon itself, activate its effect, and then proceed to the end step, adding a Druis Worm from deck to hand. We'll go for Gravekeeper's Trap here, and then in draw phase we find, oh thank goodness, a Sunflower. We're going to normal summon the Sunflower and make an IP Masquerena before activating Trap, pitching the Fenrir for a Vernisylph, then using this Vernisylph to bring back the Camellis, activating the Camellis and this copy of Kelbeck in sequence, sending a copy of Ancient Tree, and triggering the effect of nothing again! on! Okay, well, at least there are no more Skullmeisters remaining. We're going to use this Fenrir in order to clean up the board and then get in for a fair amount of damage before passing it back to our opponent. We're going to go for the Mudora, putting a bunch of crazy cards back into our deck. Our opponent in draw phase, we are going to prevent them from getting to Sprite Starter, only to reveal they drew a copy of Prosperity. They're going to go for it now, trying to find anything off the top that will make them win, and there is the starter we so desperately wanted to keep out of their hand. Oh, but they picked Jet. What the hell? They're going to normal summon this Angler. That allows us to go Camella into Mole Cricket. We're going to activate the effect of the Mole Cricket, replacing the tribute effect with the Camella to summon Camella. We'll activate Camella, and you can't negate it this time, idiot. Sacred Tree in order to grab a copy of Bamboo Shoot to hand, then Gravekeeper's Trap in order to cycle for a copy of Keldo. We're going to go for IP Masquerade to make Unicorn. Use Unicorn pitching Keldo to shuffle back this Angler, and where's your 2 now, fool? We'll draw for turn, and this should be lethal. We'll just link off for a Psychic End Punisher, activate the effect, go to 78, and dome him for a ton after Keldoing out the final Druis Worm. Woof. So it's time for game 2, and we are going second against our opponent's admittedly crazy hand. They're going to begin with a copy of Beaver. That Beaver is going to summon an Angler and make a Sprint. Sprint will send an Angler from deck to graveyard, and then we'll trigger the effect of the Angler in order to summon from deck 2 copies of Beaver. From here, we are going to go ahead and make a Gigantic Sprite, activate the effect, summon a Swap Frog, send a Swap Frog from deck to graveyard, make an Elf, and then use the effect of the Elf to bring back a Swap Frog so we can overlay for a Toad. With a negation on field, we can safely fire off this copy of Pot of Prosperity, finding off the top 3 really good ones. They take the Ash Blossom, so we can probably infer that this set card is infinite in permanence because that card's crazy and they didn't take it. We're going to go for Pizza Hut. We'll activate the on-field effect of Pizza Hut. Nobody out-pizzas the Hut, but Toad will take it. Our opponent's going to chain the effect of Elf in order to bring the Toad back. This is just an unbelievable play from our opponent. Frustrating part of the Bestials is that they have on-field effects which allow really efficient Toad activation in decks like Sprite. Our Prosby finds us pretty much nothing but a Fenrir, so we're going to go ahead and summon that bad boy. Go to the battle phase and get over Toad. All negation now dealt with. We can go ahead and normal summon this copy of Camelus. We'll activate the effect, and as expected, there is the infinite impermanence. That's going to prevent our Camelus from resolving, but we can use Blessing in order to summon this Mole Cricket from hand, at which point we can make Beast, use Mole Cricket to bring back Mole Cricket and trigger its effect, walking into the ash that we know exists there. At least we can use Fenrir here to banish this copy of Elf, but we are going to have to pass back to our opponent. They draw a hand trap. They'll flip up this copy of Pizza Hut and normal summon this Nimble Beaver. That's going to summon from graveyard an Angler. We can banish the Pizza Hut, but they can still make an Elf. We'll trigger the effect of the Mole Cricket. They will trigger a Skullmeister off the top, then they'll chain the effect of Elf, then they'll chain the effect of their own Pizza Hut, and then finally they will end with a Beaver on field. That's going to allow them to, after resolution of the effect Pizza Hut, go for another Gigantic Sprite, wipe our board, and then in main phase 2, finally make their way to blue. They're going to activate the effect of blue. Blue is going to grab them Jet. Jet is going to grab them Smashers, and then they're going to overlay for a copy of Gin Buster. Pretty much nothing in the world could out this board in 2 cards, but let's see what we draw. Yeah, that ain't going to do it. So it's time for that all-important Game 3, and this hand looks promising. Our opponent's got a bunch of Bestials. They're not very good against us. We're going to go for Camilla here. We're going to activate the effect of the Camilla, setting a copy of Sacred Tree. We'll trigger the effect of the Sacred Tree in order to grab a Mole Cricket, then fire off the Pot of Prosperity, finding off the top. Okay, we'll take it. That Vernisylph's looking pretty tasty. Afterwards, we're going to activate the effect of the Mudora. We're going to pitch the Vernisylph and get ourselves a copy of Gravekeeper's Trap face up, which we can use to cycle this copy of Sacred Tree and trigger its effect in order to grab a copy of Blessing. We'll activate Blessing to summon the Mole Cricket from hand. Then afterwards, we're going to activate the effect of the Mole Cricket. We're going to replace the Tribute effect with the Camella and then Synchro summon a Naturia Beast. We'll Mole Cricket to bring back the Mole Cricket and Tribute summon Vera before passing back to our opponent. They're going to go for Magnamut. We will trigger the effect of the Mudora in the graveyard in order to blanket, but they have a second name. Sarnir does come down. Unfortunate. In draw phase, we're going to Gravekeeper's Trap. We will call, I don't know, Sprite Blue, and then we'll chain the effect of the Vera targeting our Mole Cricket. Oh my god! Sometimes you just want it. What can I say? Oh my goodness. Our opponent's going to go to battle to clear this copy of Naturia Beast, but unfortunately it's not going to work the way they want. They're going to go for Sprite Starter here. They're going to summon the blue, but that's going to allow us to go for Camella and the effect of Horn Needle. We're going to bring back this copy of Naturia Beast, and then they're forced to go to main phase 2, set 1, and we will Gravekeeper's Trap in order to cycle before they end their turn. We draw for turn, and that is going to be way more than enough. Let's make Baron de Fleur. We're going to activate the Baron de Fleur targeting the spell. They're going to chain the spell. We don't need to negate here, but it's so much funnier if we do. We're going to go for the Vernisylph to bring back a Vernisylph, and then we'll trigger the effect of the Vera. Give me your Sarnir. We're going to increase its attack to 48 and go to the battle phase. Our opponent's going to Pizza Hut, but we have one final Mudora for them. Oh my god. Sometimes you just have the read. So we're back with the deck, and I promise you those were not scripted. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, the deck's good. The end board is pretty specifically good this format. It's difficult for any deck to play through this many points of interaction. 2, the Ishizu cards are nuts. Not Kelbeck and Agido, of course. The deck already has no problem getting what it wants into the graveyard, but Mudora and Keldo give the deck an unbelievable grind game while simultaneously giving it more play against decks like Tearlament. And 3, the boards are unique. This seems to be the trend moving forward for boards to do a lot of varied things instead of 10 quadrillion monster negates, but this deck puts up a fader, and I think that's adorable. And the cons. 1, it's got a problem with hand traps. This isn't that bad right now because people are considering the Bestials over more generics, but as Ash, Imperm, and other hand traps weasel their way back into the metagame, it might be an issue. 2, while the board is varied, most end setups are unbelievably vulnerable to Dark Ruler No More, which is seeing heavy metagame play. And 3, you really need to see Mudora or Keldo. It ups the ceiling of the deck so much that if you gamble, you may lose. Don't get it twisted. All in all, it's a very good deck, but it definitely doesn't have the strength to compete with the top 3 Titans. I expect it to be a powerful rogue option, so don't get taken by surprise.
Not back. Ow. Ooh.
Did I miss?
Yeah, you did.